you. But I think one of the most important things is, we identify the qualities associated with successful performances in football. And that's what we've been doing. And then we can look at, okay, what's required to be the best we can be. But on top of that, you can take that sort of moment to reflect on the progress you've made so far. So we look forward a lot, but just take a moment to think, okay, how far have I progressed, this past year, this past 6 months, even since the start of the year, in January. So we think back to January, and when a lot of you started going back to pre-season again and training again at that point, just think technically, how far you've improved, technically. Think tactically, how far you've improved. How do you quantify that? Well, you evaluate that through like different means, and one way of evaluation is one way to evaluate your improvements is to do like a performance profile and just look at stats to see your own performances and see how far you've come technically. Do video analysis as well. Have a look at sort of the assists, the goals you're scoring. Physically, obviously, it's easy to do, or easier to do, because you can do fitness tests. So think since January, how far have you done physically? And it's really important. I said earlier in the year that periodically to do fitness tests to see where you're up to in season, not as often as you would do in the off season and the pre-season, but it's still worth to see where you are physically. I showed you some normative data where some of the pros are and semi-pros are, but that's not the be-all end-all. There's other ways of sort of measuring fitness as well. But you sort of take some time to reflect. Okay, and psychologically as well. How far you've developed, the progress in the past year, and the level for you guys. The level. Now I want you to think for a moment, doing this exercise as well, is on a scale, guys. I want you to scale it in terms on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being high. And you've got to be true to yourself here, guys. Otherwise, you won't get a lot out of the exercise. But, I want you to think, how satisfied are you technically in terms of your improvement since January? Obviously, we're moving towards the mid-year now, on the scale of 1 to 10 and 10 being high. And what you need to do to get higher on that scale. So if you score a 7, what do you need to be an 8 or a 9? Tactically, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much progress do you think you've made? Physically, on a scale of 1 to 10. So perhaps you can quantify the physical element of your improvement by various fitness tests and think, okay, well, I'm 6 or 7 now, or 8 now, and I want to get to 9. So these levels, whether you measure, your fitness, sprinting or specific activities you do, or bleep, or whatever you do that's specific to football as possible is what you want. Psychological, evaluating yourself, where you were at the start and where you are now, and the level playing, the level that you are playing at now, has that improved? For some of you it has, for some of you obviously it hasn't at this point, but it's still early days and things can change quickly in the game of football. So as we well know, this is the chance to evaluate, the level you're playing on a scale of 10. Are you satisfied? Well, maybe you've consolidated your first team position. Maybe you've gone up a level or two. But before we sort of focus on what we need to do to go forward, and we'll do more of that in the following week, I want you to, be proud of your achievements so far. So sometimes we forget on our journey to be proud of our progress. The key is making continual progress, and if we're not, we focus on how we make that progress. So you can be proud of your progress you've made so far, because sometimes we can be hard on ourselves and think, oh, well, I'm not where I want to be. And maybe we look at somebody else and compare ourselves with where they are, and we think we're not there yet. But if you focus on somebody else and not yourself, it becomes an issue, because you need to focus on, you need to improve, not what somebody else needs to do. So have a moment to process that, guys. And I'm going to sort of bring another video up shortly, and we'll sort of see in a bit more detail before we break away, and sort of set you some activities to do between now and next week to work on, and we'll go from there. That's the whole idea of sort of, you know, this sort of continuous sort of work towards being the best we can be.